Okay, we have one item for introduction only, planning and zoning and related matters thereto. A special exception request of Bessie Johnson to place a single-wide mobile home on her property in currently zoned R3 located at 609 Loretta Street, identified by tax assessor, parcel number 03367669756. Can I have a motion to introduce this item?
I'll make that motion to introduce the item.
Okay, I have a motion. Can I have a second?
Second.
All right, there's a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we'll move on to the public hearing of planning and zoning and related matters. This is our variance request granting KP Signed LLC authority to allow a convenience store that sells packaged alcohol products to be built less than 300 feet from the property line of the playground located at Veterans Park on Malone and East First Street, identified by Boulevard Parish Tax Assessor parcel number 03373188200. Okay, I'll see in our package, we had a site plan that shows the proposed location of the front door, that shows a radius. You can see that dashed line that comes through approximately about the half of the building, which is going to be your radius from the playground. We have the applicant here. You have a buy-sell agreement in part of it. So this is our opportunity to discuss that. Before we get into discussion, we have several people here. Is there anyone here that would like to speak on this specific item in favor of or in opposition? Please come to the podium.
Take me a while to get up and hang there. All right, my name is John Hyde. For the people who do not know, I'm a resident of the city of DeRidder, well, pretty much all my life. I'd like to thank you guys for your service. First of all, to the city, it's a thankless job that you have, but thank you for giving your time to come here and try and help this community be the best that it can be. I'm not here to speak on behalf of KP Pine or LLC. I don't know the person or anybody associated with the company. I am here to talk about the Pernisi property and their family. That's the property that's in question to be sold for this store to be built on. Although I have my dear friend Sam Pernisi, who's been a friend for over 60 years here, he did not ask me to speak. I just felt like it is something that I'd like to do on my own. The property, I'll give you a little brief history. And the property that's up for sale, back in the day, we called it Pernisi Hill. Had 3 homes on that property. One was Sam's and his mother and father and sister. His father was the principal here in DeRidder at the elementary school. His mother was a 6th grade teacher here in DeRidder, and he and his sister graduated from DeRidder High School. Another home was owned by Mary Pernisi Harris. She was a single mom who raised 3 children, and all 3 of those children graduated from DeRidder High School. Mary was in charge of the DMV, and back in those days, if you needed anything, forgot to renew your license, lost your registration, you called Mary, and she'd take care of you. You didn't have to fill out a card, you didn't have to pull a number, but that's the kind of person she was, and she helped this community a lot. And the other home was a brother and sister. They lived together named George and Helen Pernisi. Helen and George ran the Pernisi grocery store, which is on the one-way for the ones who do not remember. It's the building next to which is now the pawn shop, but it was the old Napa store. That's for the building next to it was Pernice's Grocery. George and Helen ran that store for many, many years, and it was a mom and pop operation, but they helped a lot of people in this community. If you were on a fixed income and wasn't gonna get paid until the end of the month or whatever, you could go and charge items there at no interest. They'd write your name on a piece of paper, probably put it in the bottom of the cash register, and you come back and you paid them when you got your money. If you were homebound for some reason, if you wanted to, you could call their store and give them your order, and they would have it ready for you to pick up, or they would deliver it to your home at no charge. They were way ahead of Walmart, because that's what Walmart is doing now, as most of y'all probably already know. So I just wanted to give you a little history of the Pernice family. There's a whole lot more, and I know a lot of people here in this audience know the Pernice family. They're as older than I am. So, but that brings us to the reason that we're all here, or at least the ones that's interested in this variance, and talk about the 300 feet thing of the sale of alcohol. The store, my understanding, is gonna be a convenience store, package alcohol, liquor and beer, I'm assuming, to be nothing drank on the premises. Everything is to be bought and carried out. And so we already have places in this city that some of them are doing the same thing, others do have alcohol. I don't know how the measurements go. I've heard from door to door, I've heard from property line to property line. I don't really know, and that's not why I'm here. I'm here to support the less than 300 feet variance if they are less than 300 feet, which I'm assuming they are. But as I speak, we can talk about Steamboat Bill's directly across from West Park. Don't know how many feet, don't know if they got measured, don't know if they asked for any variance. Really doesn't matter to me, to be honest. We have the Mexican place, if you're at the ballpark and want a beer, you can go across the street to Steamboat Bill's and get a beer. Same thing with a Mexican place right across the highway. After you went swimming or walked in the park, be careful, but walking across the highway, you can get your margarita and some nachos. Brookshire Brothers by Grace Church, which I do attend. I don't know if they asked for any kind of variance. I don't know if they went out there and measured. I'm assuming they did. And obviously they fell within, not beyond the 300 feet. So they don't sell liquor, any kind of alcoholic beverage in their store on the west side of town, but on the east side of town, they do, because they don't have the 300-foot problem. So what they did is they took call it a portable building, and I'm assuming it's beyond the 300 feet, but still on their parking lot property, and they put up this building and they can sell alcohol from beer to whiskey or whatever you want out of that little building. They met the requirements, but are we worried about 300 feet or are we worried about kids or something else? Small issue. They became in compliance or they wouldn't be doing it. We got the Pasto's Fiesta Mexican restaurant right across the street from Veterans Park, just directly across the street. Looking at it, it can't be 300 feet, but if there's a different way to measure it, somebody has to tell me. And then at Cecil's downtown, I know they went through the process and got approved, and Cecil's has been an asset to this community in our downtown area. They created a lot of interest with that restaurant, and of course they sell alcohol. So, to make it clear, I'm for every one of those establishments I just mentioned. I'm not against any one of them. I hope every time I pass by there, they all are full. Because to me, this is not about, or shouldn't be about alcohol. I think what it should be, we should look at is a variance that would allow this convenience store that's gonna be selling alcohol along with other items, that it would be beneficial to the city of DeRidder, because we should be getting sales tax money and revenue from this organization. When I grew up in DeRidder as a kid, you know, revenue and sales tax didn't mean a whole lot to me. Didn't think about it that much. I do know, though, that back in those days, in the '60s, a lot of our revenue went straight north to Vernon Parish. As I came back to college and a year in New Orleans, I came back to DeRidder in 1973 to raise my family and never did leave again, and glad I didn't. I started thinking a little bit more about revenue, sales tax, and what makes this city go, and how can we make this city grow even more. So that brought me to, I started watching the city grow, and then I served on city council in the '80s, and then a 9-month stint here recently. And I realized then what it takes to make a city go and to make it grow, and that's revenue, and that's sales tax money. Without it, you could be in trouble real fast.
Thank you, Mr. Hyde. We appreciate that.
And
Everyone is,
Can I say one other quick thing?
yes, sir.
I just want to let you know that the Pernices donated that property across from the property we're talking about now, that's Pernice Park, back in 2013, and around 6 acres of land. They're not here, or I'm not here either today asking, hey, they asked me for a favor. 12 years ago, they know that it has nothing to do with that. They're part of this community, even though they don't live here now. They want to see this community grow. They have watched this community grow. They have family, a lot of family buried here in the city of DeRidder Beauregard Cemetery. So they will be back to the city. They're not an outsider just trying to make a quick buck and then get out of town and hope it goes well for you guys. They hoping what they're doing is, yes, they want to sell the home place. It's been a long, long time. And this is an opportunity. And that opportunity is not only going to help the Pernice family finally sell the property, it's going to also grow economic development on the east side of town, which we don't have that much. Tony's Mexican place came in, a nice building. I see cars there all the time, and I'm glad to see it. And I'm not putting down Morris Tire there forever. We have, but we don't, the latest new thing that I'm aware of, unless maybe y'all can correct me, is that Mexican place. Now with another new development on the east side of town, it'll be different than what everybody goes north, and I understand that too. This gives our east side of town an opportunity to grow and develop, and might encourage other people to do something if they have other ideas. So they're just asking for a fair chance to sell their property, and they want to watch the community grow just like we do. So I thank you for your time, and I hope you consider approving this variance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else here who would like to speak on this?
Jeremy Jones, I'm Next Home Bayou Pines real estate firm. I'm here representing both sides, the Pernices and the purchaser. Just so you're aware, KP Thine LLC is the LLC, but the company is Grab and Go Convenience Stores. I'm sure you've probably seen them across South Louisiana. This is a Louisiana company. They're based out of Lake Charles. This is not your regular mom and pop little bitty convenience store. It's going to be something extremely nice. I'm sure you've seen the site plan, along with the packaged liquor and beer. They also have plate lunches that they're going to be selling as well. And to reiterate what Mr. Hyde said about Fosto's, they were grandfathered in, but the city at that time when they purchased the property directly across the street obviously did not have any problem with the alcohol sales that's actually consumed on the premise. So I just want to make sure planning and zoning has that and understands that.
Thank you, Jeremy.
That's it. Thank you.
Yes.
My name is Robin Bissoni. I am from Lake Charles. Today I'm representing Kulwinder Singh, who is the member of KP10 LLC. He had to fly out today. His father in India had a medical emergency. So I am present to answer any questions you may have. The buildings are well designed, architectural design, would, as they apply for the building permit, would meet all construction requirements that you have of them regarding setbacks and front facade, and anything you ask of us, we will meet those requirements. we appreciate your time, and we also certainly respect and thank you for your volunteer time to the city. Appreciate it.
You're awfully very close on their site plan. Was there any consideration of any adjustments to moving the building back to the south to reduce that distance? Or were you constrained with parking requirements?
Right now, I am not aware of constraints that are causing that. If it's a matter of tweaking the site plan, I could certainly check with the architect to see if that
Okay.
could be moved.
We're very close on the line, and as this moves through the process, if that's something that can be looked at as things progress to city council, it would reduce that distance.
We're definitely open to
Okay.
looking at those opportunities.
Great.
If we
Thank
find
you.
a physical limitation, we would convey that back to you.
Understood. Thank you.
I can kind of answer that a little bit, Mike, if it's okay. What you just asked. That was a consideration. I did talk to the architect firm, but the problem with doing that is you have a church on the corner, so then you get into that. So this is kind of puts it smack dab in the middle.
Okay.
If that makes sense. We're far enough away from the church that if we start sliding to the south, then we're gonna be in the same boat.
So, all right, thank you. Does anybody have any questions? No? We'll entertain a recommendation from the commission.
Can I,
Please, yes, Mayor.
Martin, what does the statute actually say? My only concern is that we stay within the law. I don't want to do anything to violate the codes. What does it say? Just to make sure we're on the same page.
Section 2.4-42, same issuance, restriction of premises near churches, library, etc., and in certain districts. Section A says, it will be unlawful to engage in the business of dealing in alcohol beverages at any premises situated within 300 feet or less of a public playground or daycare, as defined in RS Title 17, Section 405A4, said 300-foot limitation being determined by the standard method provided by law as to the public playground and by the alternate method of measurement allowed by Louisiana law of measuring in a straight line from the nearest point of the property line of the church, synagogue, public library, school, or full-time daycare center to the nearest point of the premises of such business, which is the corner of the building, not the front door, it's the corner of the building, the part of the building that is closest to the property line, according to Section 2.4-42.
So our most recent, what Mr. Hyde referred to would be on the west side of DeRidder would be Grace Church and Brookshire Brothers ancillary building. And the determination on that distance was a safe, walkable pathway. So they're measuring that in a distance from leaving the front of a building, walking to a safe place, sidewalk along the right of way, down that right of way. If there's an intersection and they have to cross, they measure that going to that intersection, crossing safely, and then going back to that distance. Because if you take a look at from a straight line from back of Grace Church to that ancillary building, it is less than 300 feet. But the determination that when that one was approved was based on safe, walkable distance. So in this case, the radius would be out of it, and you would have to walk back to the east. You would have to cross the road and then walk, into Veterans Park. So this determination of this 300 foot in the past, the city allowed that understanding of that code, and that's how that building was placed on Brookshire Brothers' piece of property.
I don't have a vote.
Okay.
I just wanna make sure that everyone understands the law and understands what's taking place. I do know that if whatever decision you make moving forward, the city has to abide that. This will be a standard for every business everywhere. But again, I don't have a vote on it.
Yes, sir.
Am I wrong by assuming that this zoning committee, plus especially the city council, with a majority vote, has a right to accept less than 300 feet if they want to? It's not a law like you can't do it. You come to the city, and you ask for a variance or whatever, how you wanna call it, and if approved, it's approved, it's simple as that.
Yes, sir, to answer your question, yes, that's the city council has the,
Right.
but they can,
So this law is a guideline, but it can be exceptions and variances made to it if the city council chooses to do so. That's my understanding, and I hope I'm not wrong.
You were correct.
and also, Mr. Pacini, thank you very much for donating the property.
Thank you.
It is used by the kids every single day.
Thank you.
And, appreciate that very, very much.
I didn't come here to speak, if I might, and I don't expect any consideration because of that. I worked with your former mayor, Mayor Roberts, for 2.5 years, ironing that out, because he approached me about that property, and I've never given any thought because, and I talked to a number of family members, and, you know, here was our opportunity to do something, and we did donate it. And one of the last things he told me, he asked me, he said, when the hell are y'all gonna sell that property across the street? I said, I've never thought about selling it. I said, that's my last link to DeRidder. He said, I wish you would sell that property and raise some tax money for the city. And I said, well, down the road, I think we will, but not today. And that's been a dozen years ago. But thank you for your kind words.
Okay. Commission, do you have any comments? You ready to entertain a motion? Do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions.
Okay. Any further discussion?
No, I don't have any questions.
Okay.
Maybe answer.
Does anybody want to make a recommendation?
And our recommendation be moving to council?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I make a recommendation that we move this to city council.
Okay. We have a
I'll second
recommendation
it.
for approval. It's favorable.
Aye.
Recommendation to city council in a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Let's see, do we know when, city council, when introduction and public hearing?
Introduced Monday, September 22nd, with the public hearing to be October 27th.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we will move on to item number 7, planning approval only and related matters thereto. An R1 planning approval only for a fence that exceeds the maximum height of 8 feet. Okay, y'all, that application is by Wayne McGee. I do not see the applicant here. He resides at 604 Davella Drive. He has already constructed a metal fence or wall that is above the 8-foot allowed height for a residential fence. And then that it is above 8 foot for the sides and the rear, and then there's one section that he has erected a 12-foot portion on the north side to block out a section to where he says that people can view directly into it. There was a new letter that Ms. Lyons provided all of us that came out today that was not received in your package, so I want to make sure that y'all had an opportunity to see the updated letter from the property owner. The code states that 8 feet is allowed on your fronts and sides. Once it moves past the front facade of your house toward the street, it needs to taper, and that height is allowed at 4 feet. So this request for essentially to vary away from the city's code is in front of us. So we have a large group here today, so I'm gonna give everybody time to talk. If we can kind of keep some time limited, please. How many would like to speak? Can I get a raise of hands? Okay, all right. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, Chairman Clanton, Commission members, thank you for having me. My name is Lenny Hanchy. I'm 87 years old. My husband, K.R. Hanchy Jr., and I purchased the property on Daybella Drive in the late 50s. At that point in time, there was a dirt road for Daybella. There was a dirt road for 8th Street and nothing more. He was in the Air Force stationed in South Dakota. So when he got out of the Air Force and we moved back to DeRidder, we started construction on our house and moved into our house in 1963. We have a neighborhood that has wonderful neighbors. We enjoy being out in the neighborhood and seeing people walk by and look at our yards and talk about our dogs and just doing family stuff. My house is sort of in the middle of Daybella Drive, and from the center of my house, I used to be able to see all the way up the south end, all the way up the north end. I have no visibility whatever when I walk out the back of my house and look toward the right end, the north end. There's no visibility. I think that it's not only the beauty is gone, but another thing that bothers me is the security, because I have no way of seeing anything that's coming down that street until I actually get out on the street. And when I come back home, I can't get into the street without putting on my brakes and making sure nobody else is coming out my driveway. It's a terrible disruption to the community, and I would very much like to see the fence removed so that it could come back to what it used to be. My kids grew up there. They would go out in the summer, they'd go outside after breakfast, and I wouldn't see them again until dinner time, because that's the kind of community it is. But that's gone now, and we had no idea that it was even being constructed. It's a building, it's a fence that is built with steel posts and sheets of sheet metal on the side, and then it has a barrier across the top for whatever reason. There's not one thing that's attractive about it. But more than that, as I said, I'm concerned about the security. I have no way of knowing what's coming to me before it actually gets there. I'm not doing a very good job of this. This is my first occasion to ever have to do anything like this. After 62 years living there, no problems ever with any neighbor.
Ms. Hanchy, he had a wooden fence there that he had pulled a permit 3 years ago. And that was an 8-foot wooden fence. How does this new fence just on your side, only just your property line, how does this newer fence compare to what was previously there?
Well, you know, the first fence was tall, and I had no visibility, but there's no way this fence even compares to that one, because that one at least looked like wood. It looked like a tree out there. It had some semblance of something that needed to be in a yard. But this has none of that. It's a huge white metal fence. And actually, I think the fence that's in the back part of the house, I think it's more than like 15 feet or higher. But, and I guess something that is sort of interesting is that I never had any idea why this occurred 3 years ago. And when I saw it coming down a week or so ago, I thought, my, you know, all the whatever anxiety or fear or hatred or whatever's over. And by the time they got it on the floor, on the ground, which was an hour or so, here this big thing that drills holes in the ground was up there, and these metal pylons were going up. And I'm really frightened about it, because I can't tell anything that's going on in my yard, and I live alone. So I need to know what's happening really before it happens. Anyway, it's something that I can't even explain how much it has upset me.
Yes, ma'am.
And you would think after 62 years living there and being 87 years old, that I have some right to enjoy the beauty that I have worked for 62 years. But that's not happening.
Okay. Thank you for coming. Does anybody else maybe have any questions for Dr. Hinch? Excuse me.
What kind of metal is it again? Is it, you can't see through it?
Almost like a metal roof, an ag panel is, so on the back side, she sees the metal post and joist, and then the metal on her side, which is the back side, is white, and then what color is it on the other side? Is it
Beige.
beige?
How tall exactly is it?
I believe Councilman Marcello is actually measured. John?
If another one would like to speak, I'd like to
Okay.
follow them to hear.
Okay. We have some specifics on that height that will help and get to us. Thank you. Okay.
Planning Commission members and guests, visitors, I'm Rodney Holiday. I have been part of this community for, seems like 100 years. The property that we're talking about was originally belonged to Dave and Ella Shirley. Dave was one of the first U.S. Marshals in this part of the country. Ella Shirley was a half-sister to my grandfather. The exact property, in 1947, my parents bought a house on the north side of the road from this property. We were not in the city limits at that time. I kept a milk cow, a show calf, and a horse. And and the old Ebright's locker and a lot there, and anyway, we built the fence, and that's where we kept it. I can recall riding my horse exactly where my house is now, in the whole end of that subdivision. It was a pear orchard. I would ride my horse down there and pick pears off the trees because the briars and everything on the ground prohibited me from getting down and picking them up off the ground. This, in my opinion, is one of the more premier or better subdivisions in the city of the DeRidder. And going back to what Mr. Hyde said, I can remember all this stuff. Like I said, I've been here forever. And I can remember all of these old things. Right where the Catholic Church was actually a skating rink. But when I came back out of the service, I purchased a house in this subdivision. This subdivision was actually laid out by Alvy Shirley, which was a son of David and Ella Shirley. And so I'm pretty familiar with this property. And like Miss Hanchy said, it was dirt roads when we first went in there. I left, went overseas, rented my house out, came back, and have lived there ever since. Between there and a couple of other properties, like the old farm property I have out west of town. But this is, excuse me, I apologize for that. We usually fine for some of the organizations I'm in, we fine for stuff like that. But anyway, this, what we refer to as a fence, if you look up the strict definition of it, I don't think it's a fence. It's a barrier. The metal it's talking about, I think, is 28 gauge. It could be 26 gauge metal. You cannot see through it. It's called an R panel. And I'm a little familiar with that because this is what I did for many years. And it's put up with 4x4 trusses or beams or laths and posts. And it is, in my opinion, a great eyesore. And it is not next to my property. I live at 504. I have a neighbor, the Pickett's, that live at 506. And then this is a 604 address. So not only, when the wooden fence was up there, I didn't think that's quite appropriate, but it was a wooden fence. It looked like it could be part of the neighborhood. Whenever it came down and the metal fences went up, it disturbed me some. I happened to be downtown here. I went in to pay the bill, and I had mentioned, were there no restrictions? And I was told that there was no restrictions. There are restrictions. And I have it in the flat here. Now the restrictions, and I could be wrong. I'm not an attorney. I was a paralegal at one time. But to my knowledge, restrictions, when they expire, if there's no changes, or there's not the people concerned with those restrictions, if they don't vote it back, vote it out, then they're renewed. It's the same as the old restrictions. So if that is the case, then there are still restrictions. And, well, like I say, in my opinion, if you look at the definitions in your dictionary, this is not a fence. It's a barrier. It's a tall barrier. And in my opinion, it is a ugly barrier. It does not fit our neighborhood. Within the restrictions, part 6 on one of the restrictions, it says that no noxious or offensive activity shall be carried on upon any lot, nor shall anything be done thereon which may be or may become an annoyance or nuisance to the neighborhood. If nothing else, this is an annoyance.
And this is your deeds and restrictions for your subdivision when it was originally platted?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, this is
Can we have a
dated.
copy of that and get that entered into our system? That way we can
This is dated
take a look at that.
December the 16th, 1955.
Okay.
And that's whenever, right, just prior to those dates, that's whenever Alvy Shirley actually drew out the subdivision. Like I say, everything that Mr. Hyde said, I'm aware of. I don't, especially now, I don't do much. I'm not 87, but I am not far behind Miss Anchy. And when you get to be our age, I said, I can only do less than 10% what I used to be able to do. But I do appreciate living in the area. I think it's a great area to live in. When I was left here, I couldn't wait to get away from here. After I got away from here, I couldn't wait to get back to here. I mean, DeRidder is a great place to live. And I have watched it grow like anybody else. There's things I don't agree with. But there's a lot more that I agree with and that I don't agree with. And I suppose that one of the things that disturbed me about this most is Mr. Pickett, who happens to live at 506 Dave Allen, which is he lives between myself and Mr. McGee. It was and I have heard this, and I could say it could be called hearsay, but he has a son that worked for Walmart and was actually convicted of pornography. There is always more than one side to a story. This young man at the time worked for Walmart. He'd go home and he'd get on the computer. He received porno. His mistake was he sent it back out to a friend of his. And the district attorney for that area made a big deal out of that to get elected in that area. His probation was for 10 years. Louisiana raised that limit to 25 after, which again, it's a legal thing, but I don't think that, if you're convicted for 10 years, maybe if you're convicted after that, the new law should apply, but not during that time. But he is actually going to be off of probation within the next year. But Mr. McGee referred to him as a pedophile. Now, if you have children, how would you like for someone living next to you to refer to one of your children as a pedophile? This is really what irritated me. I agree with Ms. Hanchy about she can't see. And when I first moved down there, I had large dogs, 2 of them. I wanted to put a fence completely around my lot. The city told me you can't do that. Number one, you cannot build a fence along the street, so there can be no fence on the lot. Now, this may be accurate, it may not. I'm just telling you what I was told. And you cannot build a fence from the front of your house to the street that you cannot see through. And on top of that, and I heard it referred to a while ago, it can be no more than 4 foot high. So, my desire would be to have the city advise Mr. McGee of these and have him take that fence down, or at least comply with the 4 foot height and the see-through fence. And this stuff shouldn't go on in DeRidder. I looked at this stuff national and said this shouldn't go on nationally. Of course, they don't listen to me. But this should not go on in DeRidder, and this surely should not go on within our communities where I can't ever recall a problem being in that area before. But I think, and I heard you approve a mobile home and a convenience store. My question is, was this ever brought to the Planning Commission and the City Council prior to him doing these things? And if it was, I think there should have been a hearing on it, because this is really in contrast to everything that's in that little subdivision.
Yes, sir, this is the very beginning. This is, the application came post construction, and so now this is why we are having this public hearing.
And
So,
again, I appreciate your time.
Thank you for voicing your
And I appreciate your
opinion.
consideration. Thank you.
Yes, sir, Councilman.
Well, I thank this committee for giving me this time to speak with you today. I'm John Marcel, and I live at 307 Long Street here in DeRidder, and I'm also a councilman, or I am the councilman for District 3. Councilman LeBou says, everything I usually say could have been said in about 3 sentences. He and former Councilman Hyde usually get up and walk out on me. So I'm hoping y'all don't do that today, or y'all too. I just can't do it in 3 sentences. I came here today because this is an issue that's in my district. The City Council, we review and we vote on ordinances that we feel are fair, they're equitable, and they apply to all our citizens of DeRidder. Sometimes we do make exceptions. You heard it on mobile homes. We look at each of those exceptions on a case-by-case basis. We look at them very seriously to see how it's going to affect the person who's applying for the exception, but also how it may impact those neighbors that are around them. I looked at all the exceptions that were approved and denied going back to 2017. I became a councilman in 2020, so this was before me. All of these applications came before the Planning and the Zoning Committee or the City Council. Each person paid the required fee that was due if it needed it. Most of the applications were exceptions that came to us involved housing, a place for people to live. Putting a mobile home in a neighborhood or putting a new subdivision in is what we looked at. I say all this because this fence issue is an exception to the city ordinance. I've known Ms. Hanchy, Dr. Hanchy, for many, many years. She was my guidance counselor in high school. She encouraged me to go to college, and I thank her for that. She's also the grandmother to my stepson, Reed Hanchy, who passed away last year. I've known many of the residents and neighbors that live on DeRidder Drive. I've known them for several years, and I've served as their councilman for 5 years. I've also known retired Colonel Wayne McGee for many, many years too. I consider him a friend. I highly respect and I appreciate the service he and his wife have given to our country. His military career has taken him and his family all over the world. From everywhere he's lived, he and his wife chose DeRidder to retire. It says a lot about our community. In my district, and like all the other council members' districts, we work for the best for all, equally and fairly, regardless of friendships, family ties. Do we always make everybody happy? We don't, but we sure do try hard. To me, this issue is more than just putting a fence that's higher than our ordinance allows. When we choose to live in any community, not just DeRidder, we agree to comply and live by the ordinances of that community. If we want to change those ordinances, we disagree with those ordinances, well, we run for mayor. We run for city council. Or we come before the council and ask for a change. And at every city council meeting, we give time for comments during every council meeting for our citizens of DeRidder. What concerns me in this matter is the way it was handled. Not so much the height. We'll talk about that. The height of the fence. The city originally, and I think one of you said, originally approved an 8-foot wooden fence for Colonel McGee to put up on the side of his yard. I understand he spoke with our code enforcement officer, and correct me if I'm wrong, but what I understand is that he spoke with the code enforcement officer to replace it with a metal fence, I would have assumed that it would have been at least 8 feet in height, which was within the ordinance. It's a good bit higher than that. Ms. Hanchy asked me to measure when that fence, and I came up with 8'10". Y'all are welcome to measure. It's a good bit higher than that. But I tell you, I sort of understood why, because they said the slope and the contour of his yard, it's so to make the fence more level across the top. But it's still above the 8-foot requirement. I would say this, and I was hoping Colonel McGee would be here, so I would even say this if he was here today. What disappoints me most is our code enforcer asked Colonel McGee to please wait until today's meeting with planning and zoning before putting up. I thought it's a 12-foot fence in the back. I haven't measured that. It could be in his backyard. What I understand was that that's his yard. He had paid for the fence, and he didn't want to ask the installers to come back to DeRidder. That was my interpretation. That really surprised me more than anything, because he's always abided by regulations throughout his military career. And this is a city regulation. I also understand that there were some concerns, and Mr. Holliday referred to those, that there was concerns for safety for he and his wife. And that's why he wanted, to me it was 12, it may be 15. I have no idea on that part. DeRidder, it's in the top 6th or 7th safest cities in DeRidder. In Louisiana. If there was a concern about safety in his neighborhood, I wish he would have spoken with Chief Richard or Assistant Chief Hall, or even reported to me about his concerns before he took actions to put up the fence. A privilege we all enjoy is living in a country that we have freedom. It's freedom to have less government than other countries. But sometimes a little more government is needed in order to maintain a certain degree of high standard of living for all of us. Boy, am I sorry about the turmoil this has created and this issue has caused for many residents, including for Colonel McGee. I have struggled with this all weekend to see what's the best for all. I don't know what can be done.
Councilman, we see that there's a hardship for each one of these property owners. And you've talked to the colonel probably the most out of anybody. Is there any way that you see that anybody's going to be able to work through this as residents of DeRidder and neighbors?
Well, I'm going to tell you what I've thought on it. I don't know how we're going to satisfy everyone. Don't think it can be done. And I don't know what the Planning and Zoning Committee at this body their recommendations will be. I feel it may end up coming to the City Council for discussion before this is all over, which y'all decide. But I do know the mayor, this body, Planning and Zoning, and the City Council, we need to take a good look at not just only our fence ordinance, but all of the ordinances that we have on the books, to see that they're fair and they're reasonable, and how they can be enforced when they're not in compliance. While we all enjoy the liberties that we have here in DeRidder, we have to comply with certain standards of regulations and guidelines that protect all citizens. Even though we have liberties, we may own our own properties, still have to comply with the ordinance that we live under. We can't always do as we want, when we want. It's part of our society. If we're gonna have ordinances, they're just not for some. They gotta be for all of us to live by. We acknowledge that certain cases, we've already talked about, there's gonna be exceptions. And we look at those, and I hope I told you, we look at them hard. We look at them to see how they affect the applicant and how they affect the surrounding people. All of us must go through proper procedures, and that starts with the application process all the way through to planning and zoning. Procedures are put in place, and they should be followed if we want to live by our neighbors in harmony and with respect, and if we expect to have an orderly society. I knew I couldn't say this in just 3 sentences. So I do thank you for your time, and I look forward to hearing your discussion.
Yes, sir. So, I want to start off with Ms. Hanchy's hardship first.
Okay.
That is visibility for vehicular access
Okay.
up and down, develop, and then a sense of security in the same sense that Colonel McGee his hardship is for security as well.
Sure.
So we want both of them to have that.
Exactly.
Have we heard anything from Mr. or Mrs. Pickett? Do they have we would love to be able to hear from them. They're on the other side. Again, we've all heard rumors, but we would really, what do we know?
Mr. and Mrs. Pickett live next door to me. He also is a retired lieutenant colonel, and he was over at JRTC before he completely retired. He has some severe health problems. He's on a colostomy bag, and they just don't, I asked him to get here, and I can only, it'd be hearsay, I can only basically give you a synopsis of what he said. He said, number one is he had a treatment, he had a chemo treatment, and he's just not feeling up to being here. And Miss Pickett don't get out that much. But this fear of someone looking in their yard, their son does not even live here. He lives in Lake Charles. And like I say, he would have been off of probation years ago, but he will be off of probation within this next year. I don't know, a couple of months maybe. But Mr. Pickett said that if what they said about the security was that if you get up and look out his windows, the only thing you ever see is a brick wall. That he could not, if he wanted to, he couldn't observe. So that this statement referred to his son was what really irritated him. And he said he would love to come down here, but said he just couldn't do it physically. So, but
Mr. Holliday, if you speak with him, and as this moves forward, because I don't think that we're done with this.
Okay.
I think that there's too many hardships, and I think we live in a great community, and we're gonna continue to work on this. So I will not make a decision. I don't know how my fellow commission members think about it. But if he is homebound and he can write a letter so that council and the mayor and code enforcement, Ms. Lyons, we can all understand, what their thoughts are.
I will
Because
bring this to
I think we have several things to talk about, and for us to work together, some people are going to have to make some changes, if we can come to that agreement. So,
May I say one thing?
yes.
Number one, I went to visit with Chief Richard when I learned about what they were concerned about, and I asked if there had been any reports of anything in our area that had to do with a pedophile or whatever it is. Nothing has ever been mentioned to the department. The other thing is, until the hurricane, why into the communities, digging in the ground. As they came down Vanilla Drive, they did it uniformly. When they got to his yard and began to dig, he pitched an absolute fit. He told those people to get out of his yard. He didn't want them within 1 inch of the yard. Then he came to the city and he told the city what he'd done. So they didn't do one more thing to his property. They came into my property. Now he has 100-foot footage. I have 200 feet footage, and to use my yard, you have to go under a little creek that has two 25-foot culverts in it. And almost every bit of the dirt area was dug up. But my husband and I knew that the city has a right-of-way there. I think it's maybe 15 feet. The city doesn't just come in there and start digging in your yard because they like to dig. They dig out of necessity. I have never refused one time. Anytime I have ever been upset about anything that happened, I got in touch with whomever, and they did their best to correct it. And of course, it's never corrected the way it should be. But after that is when he decided not to speak to me anymore. And we never talked. He never said anything to me. It wasn't me. It was the other people out here. And then I came home one day from church. I got a call. I was out to eat after church from his wife, and she says, "Lenny, we're gonna cut some trees, and a limb or two may fall in your yard, but we'll take care of it." And I said, "That's no problem. It's okay." I come home after church, and he is standing in his yard. He has had 4 trees cut. His trees, he dropped them in my yard. I had a privacy fence that was made with ligustrum bushes that had been planted there for 50 years, and they were like 20 feet tall. But I made it halfway, and in the back, I had pine straw there that my husband, we had 69 pine trees, and we always put pine straw there. Those people had taken all the pine straw, they had cleared my back area, hauled it out, and they were cutting. He had 2 men with chainsaws and a tractor in my yard, cutting those those trees into logs. I said, what on earth are you doing? And I told him what his wife had done. He says, "I don't know what my wife has done." He's not right about that, because his wife does nothing without him. He has 4 feral cats. They run loose. They run in my yard, but I have never said anything about it. They walk all over my car, and I could just go on, but I thought we were friends, and all of a sudden it's just cut, and then all of this fencing and everything starts. I don't know that there's any way of satisfying the situation, to be honest with you. And actually, today, they were still working on that fence, putting the cap around it.
All right.
Thank you.
Mr. Clyde, you asked me a question of what I thought could resolve, which I'm crossed on that. We have 2 issues there, one for Ms. Hanchin, one for Colonel McGee. One issue, and I can't change the aesthetics of the fence, and I do not think our ordinance addresses the metal fence other than its height. That a possible resolve on Ms. Hanchy's side would to give her, however it's determined, adequate visibility to be able to get out of her driveway. Then, as far as the Colonel McGee's side, without removing the entire fence, I would want the planning and zoning committee to consider at least bringing it down to ordinance height of 8 feet. So, again, there's no total resolve to make everyone, but at least that would, I think, could be, I don't know, that y'all have to determine, and then we'll bring it to council.
If I may, just for a second, please.
Well, it's gonna have to be within code, whatever it is for height.
Ms. Hanchy, first, I hear what you're saying. You moved into your house in 1963, and you built a community, and you watched that community grow, and you cared a lot about it. Your heart and soul in that building. I understand what you're saying. And to see something like this that is totally out of the ordinary, because this is not an ordinary offense, as you were saying, Mr. Holliday. Have I ever seen a fence like this before? Only around a pool, for privacy, only around the pool.
Or a yard for wrecked cars.
Yes, ma'am, and in the back of a house. So please don't think that, I'm against you in any way, because I'm not. Safety is a priority, for the people of this city. It's just sad, as, Mr. Marcelo was saying that, it's the neighborly thing to do is to always consider your neighbors when you're doing something in a neighborhood. And, just looks like that's not what took place here. Another thing that I want to address that Mr. Marcelo said that, it was asked that he not move forward with the fence, and he did. So, these are things that we'll discuss. But, again, I don't have a vote. I just want you to know that, I understand your passion and your concern, and, I definitely understand that. Thank you, sir.
I have one more thing to say. I have lots of friends, and I live alone, and my friends are kind enough to visit me. So, they're back and forth in my house and in my driveway. And I have one friend that I played bridge with for over 30 years, and comes by to visit me and bring her dog over to see me. He has accused that friend of, what do you call it? Stalking, of stalking him. Well, there's no way she can get to my house without slowing down as she comes across his house to get in my driveway, because our driveways are right together. But I would like to say that she's not stalked anybody. She's coming to visit me.
Thank
I'm
you.
finished.
Do you have any questions?
So does the fence go all the way to the road? I mean, I haven't seen the fence.
Probably comes to the right of way,
Fence is
to
about,
to the telephone pole.
So the
So-
obstruction
fence
for
is
you
about
is.
12 foot off the street,
Okay.
about 10 to 12 foot off the street.
So it's too far out and also too tall.
Correct.
So they may need to.
And then you have one other section that's just extremely high that
Yeah.
we're not exactly sure the height, but
Right.
we know it's plus 12 feet.
And then it's not even a wooden
So,
fence. This is a metal. I think this is metal.
From the planning commission, I would like to see the visibility and the safe sight distance for someone to be able to safely be able to see north and south on develop when they pull out of a driveway from a safety standpoint. For Miss Hanchy and for her friends and for a Domino pizza delivery driver. Extra 10 inches in the grand scheme of things, he is paid for this. If we can get everybody to work together and somehow maybe pull some stuff back to where there's visibility, there's increased security and safety for Miss Hanchy on that side, I'm okay with 8 foot 10 inches. like to hear from the pickets if that extra height, if they don't have any concern with it on their side and it makes Colonel McGee feel safe to be in his own yard, it's been done. I hope that we can get everyone to work forward in this. So that's my recommendation. I would like to see some things done. It's not right how it currently sits.
Ms. Tanti, I'm sorry, I know the meeting is going long, but my dad is 93. I've been with him at the hospital all day. I'll probably spend the night with him. I left there only to come here to this meeting. And I would want people to make sure my dad was okay. I would want people to make sure my dad was safe. And so I really, when I say I get it, I really get it. I wish I was more involved earlier. Sad that a relationship, friendship has dissolved because of whatever, because I'm sure you guys know as we live, relationship means a lot. It begins to be more valuable the longer we live. And I can just commit to you that I'll do whatever I can to make sure that you feel safe at home.
Okay.
Just a quick comment for information purposes for me and maybe for future references of things of this sort. It sounds to me that we're doing everything backwards. We built our fence and obviously it's not in compliance with the code. And now we're trying to correct the problem rather than submitting to the planning and zoning what you plan to do. And some of these questions that everybody has in their head, it could be resolved even for the owner who wants to put up the fence to know I can do it, but it's gotta be done this way.
Yes, sir.
So
you're
we
exactly.
kinda sound like we're going backwards. I mean, we
No,
haven't.
you're exactly right. There was no requirement for a fence permit. So the only way you could find out that there was a fence going up if someone see it or someone complain. We do have plans to address that. I've talked to the council president about it. And we plan to, that's some things that we have to fix moving forward. It's just, and I hate that we have to fix that, while going through this situation, but I'm thankful because this situation is gonna make it better for other neighbors and other friends. So, yes, sir, you're exactly right. And then there need to be some code to allow us to enforce those statutes, those regulations, in a timeline. So everybody be held accountable because DeRidder is a neighborly place and we know our neighbors. We normally get along with our neighbors. And so this is, again, it's very extraordinary for DeRidder. And, but you're exactly right, sir, you're exactly right. But we have to start somewhere. And it's just sad that we're starting after the fence was built, after the property owner was asked not to do it until at least courtesy of this meeting.
So currently, as the application is submitted, in its current state, I recommend a denial of the planning approval only as it currently exists. If it can be worked out and it can come back to us underneath different circumstances, I think that we would all entertain this. So we can either table to see if things can be worked out, or we can deny this. How would you like to proceed?
If we table it, when do we come back to
30 days.
resolve this?
So within those 30 days, the homeowner can't do anything else, or is the fence complete? I haven't seen it. The
It's
fence is
complete.
completed?
Yes.
They're working on it
Okay.
today.
So working on today.
And that was just finishing components. So it's
Completed. It's done.
So I'm not understanding, how come, he just can't be told, hey, you know, your fence too high. Remove it, put the proper size on. I just think if we don't start forcing the code now.
We have
It's
no
gonna-
legal right to say, hey, this is your private property,
Mhm.
but we're gonna come over here and tear your fence down, or make that we don't have those rules in place yet. We are going to have those rules in place.
Mhm.
It's not to go through this again, but we have to work with the city council. As I said, I've talked to the president, and he sees this, and we talk rather extensively about it, because we take it very serious. But we are going to have rules to enforce it. This is, you know, it's just disheartening.
Right.
But we can't really go and demand.
I wasn't gonna say anything, but just real quick before y'all make your final decision. First of all, I think it's my responsibility to find out if I can or can't do something on my property. The website is there for me to go on and look and say, I can or can't do this. But what disturbs me a little bit greater than that is that he had approval prior to this mayor, prior to some of these council members, to put an 8-foot fence all the way, when it clearly states less than that in your front yard. I've driven all over town for the past 3 days. There's not anything like this anywhere. No fence comes to the easement. I think it's disgusting. I would fight it tooth and nail if it was on my street, 100%. I'm not for it. It can go on the record that I said so. Regardless of safety, Ms. Hanchy's status in our community, I don't care who it is. I think it's not good, and it's my responsibility as an owner to find out, can I or can't I? And we all know 12 feet is not allowed. So we will have to come up with some kind of fix. 8 foot's not good even in the front. I'm sorry, I'm not in agreement with that, and I do think it needs to be addressed. And we'll have to decide going forward how we're gonna do it if it reaches the council. But I know we're in a pickle here, but first and foremost, if I were gonna do that, I would have competency enough to say, I need to check and see if I'm allowed to do this. I think it falls on the homeowner first.
Thank you.
Oh, my name is Randy Larkin.
Oh, really?
608 Stacy Lane.
I agree with that.
Okay. Okay, we'll entertain a motion then.
I would say take it for now.
You wanna try that method and see if, yeah.
No, if the man ain't speaking to me, don't tell somebody.
Is there any way to change the fence, like for a see-through fence? Because I don't know if I can say this, but
There's
I'm in
no-
agreement. Because if it was my house and there was an obstruction and I couldn't pull out and see something, I would have an issue with that. I would. So I'm in agreement. I think something needs to be done with the fence,
I'm
whether it be
just-
costly for the gentleman or not.
So the thing is, you have to consider the fact that we don't have laws to make them do that.
Correct,
So,
but
I think
But there's
we all
still
understand.
safety reasons, there's
I-
still safety.
Hey, I'm
So
100%.
if they could change the fence
Right.
to a see-through fence,
Now
something
that's-
else, but it going towards, I mean, all the way, I wouldn't, all the way to the road, I don't know.
I'm
I
not
just-
disagreeing with you, I agree
Yeah,
with you.
I just have an issue with it.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, isn't there a clause under general provisions about things like this, that there are fines that can be levied?
Yes.
If I'm not mistaken. Maybe
Yes.
you could correct me if I'm wrong, I'll check that out. So,
We have.
I'm not saying that's what we should do, I'm just saying there are things we can do. But is it something we're gonna have to do or need to do or take on? However, there are provisions in there that can be corrected.
Correct.
Thank you.
So, all right, y'all, the motion, or this is for, they're basically asking, will we approve a higher fence of 8 feet? So that is our specific, so that is what our motion needs to be based on for moving forward from here is, this is the specifics. We've talked about a lot of things, but
Yeah.
this is what our recommendation needs to be based on.
Got hands.
You got a couple of hands up.
Yeah.
Got hands.
Well, just one last comment, if I may. Again, we've talked about the issue of the height of the fence, but I don't know what is the resolve when our code enforcement asked to not proceed, and it still moved forward in spite of that.
Correct.
And that's more my concern, although I disagree with the height of the fence. But as far, if the code enforcer came to me and said, and I think to anyone in here, came to me and said, stop. In fact, that's what the authority we give the code enforcer, is to tell them to not proceed. Now,
And the normal person probably would, I would.
Okay.
If the code enforcer say, hey, I would, for several reasons. One is just the right thing to do. The other thing is just courtesy and respect of the law. But in this case, he didn't. So we have to find out legally what we can do. So I would just basically, just motion that we find out what we can. I think we're all in agreement that the fence is ugly and it's out of code. So with that, I just.
Okay. You wanna make a recommendation based on the request that came to us?
Like, I'm sorry.
We would deny, or you would approve the height of the fence exceeding 8 feet?
I would make to deny it.
To deny it. So I have a recommendation to deny planning approval for a higher fence that exceeds a maximum of 8 feet. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. All right, does anybody have any other business they'd like to discuss? Adjourned.
This fence.